Andreas. So in this video I want to talk a little bit about turnarounds, and we a while ago have gone over a couple of them. They were in your thick blues book. Those I think though for the time were a little complicated, and so I'm going to work back into those, but I'm going to start with a couple that are a little bit easier, and then, like I say, we'll attack those other ones at some point. So, let's tune up for a second. Okay, so one of the very most common ones, and these are both going to be in the key of A, so our blues in A. And the turnaround, basically what it means, it comes at the end of a blues progression, and it's how you turn around and start the beginning again. Okay, it's just a procedure to get from one to the other. So at the end of a blues progression, if you recall, we've got E, and we're in the key of A, so we start with, this is the last four bars, E, and then D, and then A, and then E. And sometimes we've done that seventh chord, right? Well, a turnaround is going to replace the last two bars, so it'll go like this. It'll go E and D. One beat on A, like just hitting basically the power chord, and then we still end with the E7 chord. Okay, now what this little deal is, start with your little finger and your ring finger on the 5th fret. And then the little finger just stays planted, and you keep returning to that note. That's an A. Okay, same as your A string. And then the note on the B string travels down one fret at a time. And the way I finger it, I just go ring finger, middle finger, index finger, and then slide the index finger down, and you hit these at the same time. Okay. And then you can do a couple things after that. You can just let it ring. And then hit the E. Or that's kind of what I like to do. So I like to, when I hit that double, I hit, so I'm hitting the C sharp, which is your 2nd fret B string, and then the A, back to the C sharp, and then your open G. And then the E7. Okay, now what this chord is, it's basically another way to play an A7 chord. It's your A7. Okay, you can see it sounds very similar, right? So that just leads us right to the E7. Okay, so again, let's start it from the beginning of the last four bars. D and A. And then we're back to the blues progression. Okay? Now the other one that's a variation of this one, it really works almost the same way. it's kind of this one turned inside out. So instead of starting with both on the 5th fret, you put your index finger on your A on the E string, and then your little finger goes on the B string 3 frets away. And this is actually playing a G. So it's kind of doing an A7 there too, because the G is the 7th of A. So, and then we crawl down. So, I guess the best way is probably to bar these two with your index finger and then go little finger, ring finger, middle finger, and then together. And then you can do the same thing. All right? Okay. So, and it comes at exactly the same spot. See how that works? So, again, they're kind of like inside out of each other. Alright. And then you might have noticed what I do with the E7. Alright. I kind of arpeggiate that one. So I just, do... I'm not really being that careful with which strings I'm hitting. I'm just kind of going from bottom, and then on the very last one I do an up pick on the, and basically hit the last two or three strings. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 4th one is up. And that just flows nicely back into the progression. Okay, so that's all there is to that, really. And like I say, we'll talk about some other ones. There's lick turnarounds like this, and then there's chord turnarounds also, where you can go through a sequence of chords. So, and I'll touch more on this later. But let me just think this through for a second. So if I'm going to so I could do something like this. Okay, so I just threw a couple extra chords in. That's an example. We'll talk about that at another time. I did want to just, though, on something I just touched on when I was talking about the G in the 2nd riff and A, the G being the 7th of A. And we've talked a little bit about that, but I just kind of want to review that. So the reason it's called a 7th chord, an A7, is because we've got an A chord, and then we add a note 7 notes above an A. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So that means we add a G. And that's what we're doing when we go from this chord, and then when we release our middle finger, we're adding an open G. So that's why it has that distinctive sound, because it's got that extra note. Now, that kind of seventh chord is what's called a dominant seventh chord, and I've actually been talking to Gianna about these too. The reason it's called dominant is because it's a chord that wants to move. It wants to go somewhere. All right. Usually an A7 wants to go to a D, or it wants to go to an E. Okay, as we did here. Alright, and this is a dominant seventh too, this E. Because what do we do when we add the seventh to E? Well, we get E, F sharp, G sharp in this case, A, B, C sharp, D. So we add a D. Well, when we release our ring finger, we're adding an open D. Okay? So that's how we get that. And that's also a dominant chord because it wants to move. It wants to move back to A. Okay? There's other kinds of seventh chords also. There are major seventh chords, which I believe we had one in Jingle Bell Rock, if I'm not mistaken. Really quickly, in that case, we're still going up 7 notes, but we're going up and staying in the key of the chord. Okay, now what that means is, normally in the key of A, we have A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and then back to A. So normally in the key of A we have a G sharp. So just a plain old A7, which is actually called a major 7, is going to be an A with a G sharp added. That's going to sound like this. Okay? And I'm fingering the G sharp here. Alright, G, open, G sharp, next one, and then the same 2 other notes. And that's got kind of a mellow, jazzy sound. And it's not pulling as strongly as the dominant 7th, okay, and that's kind of the difference. So, there are a couple different kinds. There's actually 3 kinds. I'll talk about the minor 7th later. And we're going to have that coming up in your book. But one other common chord, a major 7th, is this D. And it's real easy. You just bar these first 3 strings. And you are adding, in this case, a C sharp, because our D scale is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and back to D. Now when we do our regular D7, our dominant 7, you know this form. We're playing a C here, not a C sharp, but a C. But when we shift to the major, we're moving this guy up a fret to a C sharp. It's a very different sound. Okay, so that's a little bit about 7th chords, and we've got some more coming up in your book, and we'll kind of tie that all together. So, turnarounds and 7th chords, and we'll kind of reiterate a little bit of that Wednesday, and we'll see you then.